Hey guys, it's me, Liv. I hope everyone's doing good out there. Today I'm going to bring you a super simple set of cards that I'm creating here. I'm going to be using some Distress Oxide, the Catch Flamingo, and then Distress Ink, the newest Salvage Patina colors. I got both of them over at the Not Too Shabby shop. And I'm going to be combining it with this My Favorite Things Premium Stencil. This is a new one that just came out. So again, you can find it over at the Not Too Shabby shop. So what I'm going to do here for the first card is create a single layer card. So I'm going to take out my brushes and then take my salvage patina and pretty much just center it in the middle of this card. What you want to do is make sure that you get a decent amount because you really probably only want to get at this one time. I'm not looking to cover the entire surface. I am just trying to really focus on the center. Once I have that all set, I'm then going to be moving on to using some of the sentiments that came in the May box. So this one that I'm going to be using is called Drink the Coffee. Now, since I'm going to be using embossing powders, I'm just going to hit that with the Versamark, make sure I rub it in real good. I usually do stamp at least 2 or 3 times to make sure I got good coverage. Once I know it's in there, I can then take out my embossing powders. Because I want it to stand out, I'm just going to go ahead and use some black embossing powder here and then wipe off any excess that has stuck anywhere else. When you're using Distress oxides or inks, make sure it is completely dry in between, or else it'll sometimes stick directly onto the Distress inks, which will kind of get in the way of what your project is trying to do. So, of course, if you get a couple little staggers of embossing powder that does not belong there, I just use a little brush, wipe it away, and then we can move on. Now it's time to just hit that embossing powder with that heat gun. Always make sure that you actually have your heat gun heating up on the side because you don't want to do it right there so that it from the beginning. I usually let it heat up for about 30 seconds and then I start doing my embossing. So you can see this is a great way to get a beautiful and crisp and deep image here. You can also do this if you have black ink and use some clear embossing powder to really make it stand out. That's another technique as well. So now I know it is all said and done. And then I'm going to trim it off just a little bit because I'm going to be mounting it onto a blue base here and then adding a couple of little embellishments on the side. Then I'm going to go ahead and finish this card off with some Nouveau drops. I tend to do threes just because I think it kind of balances it all out. I've mounted it on a card base and then my card is all done. So then I'm going to go ahead and move on to creating another simple stencil base card. So I have a circle stencil that I put underneath. That is going to mark off where the round part of my card is. Then I'm going to go ahead and move on and use my Distress Oxide Kitsch Flamingo color, which is also one of the newer of the Distress Oxide colors that have come out recently from Tim Holtz. Once I have that all evenly in, then I'm going to go ahead and move on to doing some stamping with it. Now, I am actually going to use the same exact technique that you saw me do in the beginning. If you are someone who really loves clean and simple cards, this is a great way to get a clean and simple card. Again, I always use my anti-static powder before, little dust bag before I go ahead and stamp. This time I'm going to use that same stamp sentiment again, and I am going to use the one that says lashes long and coffee strong. So I went ahead again and did this in black ink here. What I ended up deciding to do is not go ahead and use any embossing powder. It came out actually pretty rich just using the VersaClear ink. So I decided I really didn't want to, even though that's where I was going to do it first. So you can see that you don't need to get all those fancy embossing powders. You can just use good old-fashioned ink. Now that I have that down, I'm actually going to trim it out a little bit because I am going to be using a clear shaker base that you can get from My Favorite Things. Created this one, and I'm going to actually create a shaker card out of this. So once I have trimmed out my square, now I am using my Spellbinders die cut machine here, just so you can see how quickly this can be done. Once I go ahead and have that, I am going to be figuring out exactly what the placement is going to look like for using the full-size shaker plastic piece that you can get. Now, as you can see from this plastic piece, it's going to encompass the entire base of the card. One way I like to secure it down is by using some score tape all along the sides of it. Now, because I want to make sure it's pretty sturdy, I'm going to go ahead and glue that down onto a regular card base. That is a 4.5 by, I'm sorry, 4.25 by 5.5 size base, even though I have trimmed this down. Then I'm going to go ahead and get the full-size shaker base that I have. Now I'm just going to show you how I do this with the score tape. I'm not going to show you all sides because when you use liquid glue, it's going to be a hot mess. That's why I tend to use score tape. So I went ahead and took out my score tape, and I don't really have the thin one, so I'm just using the thicker one and trimming it down. But what you want to do is make sure you get that on really well. If you don't have the thinner size one, you can go ahead and trim it off as you see me do here. And then you're going to get your sticky sides. Now I've done it to all my sides very quickly, and then I'm going to go ahead and put in my shakers. Because this is going to take up the entire space, I am going to use a menagerie of different types of sequences as well as shapes, and some different other assortments that can go in here. I don't want it to be too full, but I want it to be pretty full because it is the entire front of the card. So once I have that all set, it's time for me to go ahead and put the shaker cover on top. Now, as you're going to see, both of the sentiment stamp sets, this stencil, and a number of the other wonderful things that I'm using here in this video is available over at the Not Too Shabby Shop. Jamie each month comes out with a fantastic kit box of her own original designs that she has either created herself or partnered with some great artists out there that are exclusive to the Not Too Shabby Shop. The other thing that you can also see is lots of wonderful products from a lot of favorite stores. She is my go-to to buy any of my favorite things and or Stamping Bella type of projects as well. So because I didn't want anything to show over on the sides, when I trimmed it out, I trimmed it so that it can cover all along the edges, so that just in case any of that tape happened to peek through, it is now nicely contained. And there is my shaker card. So I hope you guys enjoyed these super simple videos that I made. Card making does not have to be crazy complicated, and I'm sure you guys can create this with whatever type of inks or stencils that you have in your stash. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good night.